Okay, let's jump right in. Right now, as we're talking here in June 2025, something pretty big is happening over in Europe.
Yes, it seems like the first really significant, long-lasting heat wave of the summer season is settling in.
And we're not just talking warm weather. The source material highlights temperatures soaring above 40 degrees Celsius. That's, what, over 104 Fahrenheit?
Exactly. In parts of Spain, France, Portugal, places that are, definitely feeling it.
And it's not looking like a quick blip either. The projections suggest this intense heat could easily stick around.
Well into mid-June, potentially. It's a sustained event.
Just imagine that heat descending day after day,
Right.
just baking those big urban areas, those cities.
And that image, that immediate reality, ties directly into the core issue our source material brings up. Cities are, well, they're right on the front line of climate change.
The front line. That's a strong way to put it.
It is, but it fits. They experience the consequences so immediately, so intensely. And extreme heat, specifically, is called out as one of the most pressing and, frankly, fastest growing threats they face.
Why are cities particularly vulnerable, though? Is it just the concrete?
That's a big part of it, yeah. The density, the materials, they're built from concrete, asphalt, they absorb and hold heat. Plus, there's less vegetation for cooling, and all the human activity generates heat too. It makes managing heat incredibly difficult.
So it's sort of inherent to the urban structure itself.
Pretty much. And while we're seeing this play out now in Europe, the source, it quickly looks further ahead.
Yeah.
And that future picture, it's quite alarming.
Alarming is right. By 2050, and that's only 25 years away, the number of cities globally exposed to what the source calls dangerous levels of heat,
Yeah.
it's expected to triple.
Triple. Just pause on that for a second. 3 times the number of cities facing dangerous heat levels. That represents a massive increase in the sheer number of people, urban populations, living under that kind of risk.
And it gets even more specific, doesn't it? Talking about peak temperatures.
It does.
Yeah.
Peak temperatures hitting a scorching 48 degrees Celsius, that's over 118 Fahrenheit, potentially becoming the new normal in some regions.
48 degrees? Normal. That's hard to even comprehend. Think about the scale of that change. It's dramatic.
It's a fundamental shift. And conditions like that, they don't just make things uncomfortable, they put incredible stress on the very systems that keep cities running, that make life possible.
What kind of systems are we talking about?
Well, critical urban infrastructure, for one. Think
Mhm.
roads, railways, the power grid, water pipes. All of that feels the strain under extreme heat.
Right. Things buckle, things warp, demand spikes.
Exactly. Then there are the public health systems. They have to somehow cope with potentially huge surges in heat stroke, dehydration, worsening chronic conditions.
Hospitals, emergency services,
Mhm.
they'd be stretched incredibly thin.
Absolutely. And all this impacts the overall livability of a city. How functional is it? How pleasant? Can you even go about your daily life safely and comfortably when it's that hot?
It sounds like it affects almost every aspect of urban life.
It does. And the source makes a really crucial point here. The stress falls hardest, it says, especially for vulnerable communities.
Who does that typically include?
Well, the elderly, low-income populations who might lack AC or live in less insulated housing, outdoor workers, people with existing health conditions, those with fewer resources to adapt or cope. The heat hits them disproportionately hard.
So it affects their health, their finances, their ability to just get by. It's an equity issue, too.
A major one. Their well-being is profoundly impacted.
Okay, so we've got this immediate heat wave serving as a kind of warning shot. And then these projections for a future, not too far off, bringing immense system-wide pressure. It sounds, well, overwhelming.
It certainly paints a challenging picture, but the source doesn't just leave us there with the problem. It introduces a potential way forward.
Ah, right. This is where AI comes in.
Exactly. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is presented as, and I quote, emerging as a vital tool in the urban climate adaptation toolbox.
A vital tool. So positioning AI not just as a tech trend, but as a potentially crucial part of how cities can actually adapt to this heat challenge.
Precisely. If cities are on the front lines and heat is a primary weapon, AI is being explored as, well, a key piece of the adaptive defense system, you could say, moving beyond just coping towards smarter adaptation.
And that's really what we want to dig into in this deep dive, isn't it? We want to use this source material to explore the specific practical ways AI could actually help cities adapt to extreme heat.
Yeah, we'll unpack the key ideas from the source, look at the underlying concepts, and then examine a really concrete example they provide of AI already being used.
And this topic, it should matter to you listening, wherever you might be. Maybe you live in a city. Maybe you felt summer's getting hotter.
Or perhaps you're interested in climate change impacts more broadly or how technology is shaping our societies.
Or maybe you just want to understand how cities are trying to solve these really complex, future-facing problems. It's about understanding our changing reality and the innovative responses starting to emerge.
So let's really get grounded in the scale of this first. Section 1, the burning issue, understanding the scale of urban heat stress.
Okay, so that idea of cities being on the front line, it's not just poetic, is it? There's a physical reason for it.
Not at all. It's very literal, rooted in urban physics and geography. Cities are built differently than natural landscapes. Think about it, vast amounts of concrete, asphalt, brick, glass.
All materials that absorb heat really well.
Incredibly well. They soak up the sun's radiation all day. And unlike areas with lots of trees, grass, and soil, cities lack that natural cooling effect from evaporation and transpiration, what scientists call evapotranspiration.
So the heat gets trapped.
It gets absorbed, stored, and then re-radiated, especially at night. That's why cities often stay much warmer than surrounding rural areas even after sunset. The density plays a role too.
How so? Tall buildings.
Yeah, tall buildings create urban canyons that can trap heat near ground level and block cooling breezes. Plus, just human activity itself, traffic, factories, air conditioners, pumping hot air out while cooling the inside generates significant waste heat.
Right, the AC units are cooling indoors but heating the outdoors.
Exactly. All these factors combined create what's known as the urban heat island effect. Cities become distinct islands of higher temperature.
Sometimes several degrees hotter than nearby rural areas.
Easily, sometimes significantly more, depending on the city and the conditions. So when a big heat wave hits, like the one in Europe right now, the effect inside the city is amplified. It's more immediate, more intense, and lasts longer.
And we're seeing that amplification right now, June 2025. Spain, France, Portugal hitting over 40 degrees C. As you said, that's not just uncomfortable, that's dangerous.
It poses serious health risks, puts strain on energy grids, impacts transport, and the fact that it's projected to last well into mid-June really drives home that these aren't just quick, one-off hot days anymore. We're talking sustained heat stress.
On millions of people living in major urban centers, it's not abstract modeling, it's happening right now.
And it serves as a very stark, very real preview of the future the source describes. Those 2050 projections, they are sobering.
That tripling figure again, the number of cities exposed to dangerous levels of heat, set to triple. Let's try to visualize that. Take all the cities we currently think of as being at high risk for severe heat.
And imagine that list being 3 times longer in just 25 years. It implies huge new populations, potentially billions more people living in cities that will routinely face conditions we currently consider extreme.
And it's not just more cities experiencing heat, it's the intensity within those cities. That 48 degrees C figure, 118 Fahrenheit, potentially becoming the new normal peak in some places.
48 degrees. What does dangerous heat even mean at that level? It means prolonged outdoor activity becomes perilous. The risk of heat stroke, severe dehydration skyrockets. It worsens existing health issues like heart or lung conditions.
And psychologically, the idea of that becoming routine, it changes everything.
It absolutely changes the basic rhythm of urban life. When can you commute? Can you use parks or squares? Can outdoor workers even function safely? How do people cool their homes affordably or at all? It affects sleep, mental well-being, the fundamental quality of life.
Which leads us right back to those stress points the source identified, the critical systems under pressure.
Exactly. And they're all interconnected. A failure in one place ripples outwards.
Let's break them down. First, stress on urban infrastructure. What does that look like in practical terms?
Well, the source doesn't list specifics, but we can infer. Think about materials. Asphalt roads, softening, even buckling in extreme heat. That causes traffic chaos, needs constant, expensive repairs.
I've seen pictures of that. It looks like the road is melting.
It essentially is, under enough heat and pressure. Railway tracks are another big one. Steel expands in heat. If tracks expand too much, they can warp or buckle, forcing trains to run much slower or stop altogether. Major disruption.
And especially during a heat wave when maybe the subway is the only cool way to travel.
Precisely. Then there's a power grid. This is huge. Millions of air conditioners turn on simultaneously, pushing demand through the roof. Transformers can overheat and fail. Power lines can sag under heat and high load. The risk of blackouts surges right when people need power most for cooling.
A nightmare scenario. Losing power during extreme heat.
And water systems, too. Demand for drinking, showering, cooling goes up. At the same time, the physical pipes and infrastructure are stressed by heat expansion, potentially leading to More leaks or bursts just when water is most needed. The physical skeleton of the city is straining.
Okay, so infrastructure takes a beating. And you mentioned how a power failure connects to the next point, stress on public health systems.
Directly. Heat itself causes a jump in illnesses. Hospitals see more admissions for heat exhaustion, heat stroke. Dehydration becomes common.
And it makes existing conditions worse.
Significantly, people with heart problems, respiratory issues like asthma, diabetes, they are much more vulnerable. Heat puts extra strain on their bodies, so emergency rooms get busier, ambulance calls increase.
The whole health system feels the pressure.
The entire system. Public health officials have to issue warnings, scramble to open emergency cooling centers, maybe send teams out to check on vulnerable people. It requires rapid coordination and stretches resources very thin, potentially pulling them from other areas.
And if the infrastructure is failing and the health system is overloaded, that clearly impacts the third stress point, overall livability.
Absolutely. If the roads are jammed or melting, the cranes are delayed or dangerously hot, the power might go out and hospitals are full. The city just doesn't function well.
Basic things become hard.
Very hard. Commuting is miserable. Using public parks or plazas during the day might be impossible because of the intense heat, especially with the urban heat island effect. Simple errands feel like expeditions. Outdoor jobs become hazardous. The city feels less vibrant, less functional, less comfortable, less livable.
And layered on top of all that is the impact on vulnerable communities. The source specifically says the stress falls especially on them.
And this is critical. Again, thinking about who this includes: the elderly, maybe living alone, low-income families in housing without good insulation or AC, people working outdoors, those with disabilities or chronic illnesses. They often bear the brunt.
Why is the impact so much greater for them?
Several reasons. They might have higher physical susceptibility. They often live in areas that get hotter, less green space, more asphalt. Crucially, they often lack the adaptive capacity, meaning the resources to cope. They might not be able to afford to run an air conditioner even if they have one. They might have difficulty traveling to a cooling center. They might lack access to timely health care or information. So the heat doesn't just affect their health, it deepens existing social and economic inequalities.
Makes a tough situation even tougher.
Exactly. So summing up this section, we have this escalating, complex, interconnected challenge. Heat waves are getting more intense, more frequent. They stress the city's physical infrastructure, its health systems, its basic livability, and hit the most vulnerable the hardest.
An unprecedented challenge, as the source puts it, because a failure in one system like power cascades into health, transport, everything else.
It paints a very clear, urgent picture, and it sets the stage for why new tools are being sought. Which brings us to Section 2. AI enters the urban adaptation toolbox.
Right. So the source defines urban AI very specifically. The application of AI technologies to urban systems and decision-making. Let's unpack that.
It's a key definition. It means we're not just talking about AI in the abstract. We're talking about applying things like machine learning, data analysis, optimization algorithms directly to how a city works.
Like traffic lights, power grids.
Exactly. Traffic, energy, water management, public safety, waste collection, even urban planning choices. Using data and computational power to understand those systems better, predict how they'll behave, and ultimately make smarter decisions about how they operate.
And the source calls this urban AI a vital tool for climate adaptation, specifically heat adaptation.
Yeah.
What does AI bring to the table that maybe older methods lacked?
I think the biggest thing is its ability to handle immense complexity and massive amounts of data almost in real time. Cities are data factories.
Sensors everywhere, traffic feeds, weather data, utility meters.
Right. Social media, public health stats, climate models. It's a flood of information. AI has the power to pull all these different streams together, find patterns humans might miss, make sophisticated predictions, and figure out the optimal way to run complex, dynamic systems.
So it's about processing power and pattern recognition on a scale we couldn't do before.
Pretty much. It offers a level of data-driven insight, predictive capability, and potential for dynamic optimization that could really transform how cities manage challenges like extreme heat.
And the source states the goal here is to help cities anticipate, manage, and mitigate the effects of extreme heat. Let's break those down. How does AI help anticipate?
Anticipation is about prediction. AI can analyze historical weather data, future climate models, but also hyperlocal data like building heights, street layouts, the amount of green space, even the type of surface materials block by block.
To create really detailed heat maps.
Exactly. Highly granular heat risk maps. It can predict not just that a heat wave is coming, but which specific neighborhoods or even which city blocks are likely to get hottest because of the urban heat island effect or lack of shade.
Potentially who lives there.
Crucially, yes,
Yeah.
by integrating anonymized demographic or public health data, AI could potentially flag areas where high heat risk overlaps with concentrations of vulnerable populations, the elderly, low-income residents, etc., before the heat hits.
So cities could be proactive, not just reactive.
Hmm.
Target warnings or resources.
Precisely. Move from general alerts to highly focused preventative outreach.
Okay, that's anticipating. What about managing heat events in real time while they're happening?
This is where AI's optimization power shines. During a heat wave, systems are under intense stress. AI can monitor real-time data from all over the city: temperatures, energy load, traffic, cooling center usage, maybe even emergency calls.
And then adjust things.
Dynamically adjust operations. For example, it could optimize ventilation and cooling in public buildings or transit systems, like the Barcelona example we'll get to maximize comfort and safety, while maybe minimizing energy waste.
Or traffic lights.
Yeah, manage traffic signals to reduce stop-start traffic and idling, which adds to local heat and pollution. It could help the power grid operator balance load to prevent blackouts. Maybe even guide emergency services or mobile water distribution teams to areas showing the most acute need based on real-time reports. It's about smart, coordinated, data-driven operational response.
Makes sense. Real-time control. And the third goal, mitigate. How does AI help with longer-term reduction of heat impact?
Mitigation here is about strategies to cool the city down over time or reduce its vulnerability. AI can inform better long-term planning and policy. By analyzing microclimates and urban design, AI could identify the most effective places to plant trees, install green roofs, use reflective cool pavements, or create water features to maximize cooling impact.
So guiding urban greening and design choices.
Yes. It could also help evaluate the potential heat impact of proposed new buildings or developments based on their design and materials before they're built. And it could help target long-term programs like retrofitting homes in vulnerable neighborhoods for better insulation, ensuring resources go where they'll make the biggest difference in building resilience over years.
It's using data to shape a cooler, more resilient city in the future.
Exactly. Anticipate, manage, mitigate. A comprehensive approach.
And the source emphasizes that AI helps do this in more targeted and effective ways. What's the key advantage implied there?
It's about precision versus blunt instruments. Instead of just opening all cooling centers and hoping people come, AI might identify which centers are underused or inaccessible to certain groups, allowing for targeted promotion or transport solutions.
Like sending a shuttle bus.
Potentially, yeah. Or instead of a general plant more trees campaign, AI could analyze shade patterns, pedestrian flows, and local heat data to recommend planting specific types of trees on specific streets at optimal spacing to provide the most cooling benefit during the hottest times for the most people.
So it's about efficiency and equity, getting the most impact from limited resources.
Precisely. Using detailed data to allocate budgets, staff time, or physical interventions where they'll do the most good, especially for those most at risk. It makes adaptation smarter, faster, and potentially much more equitable.
Okay, so urban AI offers this potential for a much more precise, data-driven way to handle urban heat. It sounds powerful in theory.
It does. It represents a shift from just reacting to heat waves to proactively managing and mitigating them using intelligent systems.
But does it work? Does this translate from concept to reality? That brings us to Section 3 and the source's concrete example. Barcelona's AI-powered metro cooling.
Yes, this case study is really valuable because it grounds the discussion. It shows AI applied to a complex, vital piece of urban infrastructure, the Barcelona Metro.
Which is huge, right? Over 130 stations.
Massive, and parts of it are over a century old. Managing heat and air quality in any subway system is tough, especially deep underground. Heat builds up from trains, equipment, brakes, lights, and just the sheer number of passengers.
And ventilation is tricky in those long tunnels and enclosed stations.
Very tricky. It's a complex network. And as outside temperatures rise, keeping the underground environment comfortable and safe becomes even harder. Poor conditions affect passengers, obviously, but can also lead to equipment problems, delays, adding more stress during a heat wave.
So Barcelona's Transit Authority, TMB, decided to tackle this.
They did. They partnered with Scener Engineering and developed a system called Respire. The source specifically calls it an AI-powered ventilation control platform.
AI-powered ventilation, what does that actually mean on the ground? Sensors everywhere.
That's the likely setup. A network of sensors measuring temperature, humidity, probably CO2 levels for air quality, maybe even passenger numbers or train locations in real time.
And all that data feeds into the AI.
Into the AI algorithms. The AI processes this constant stream of information and then decides how to best operate the ventilation system, fans, vents, air handlers across the network. It's not just on-off, it's making continuous, subtle adjustments.
To optimize conditions based on what's happening right now and what's predicted.
Exactly. It learns from the data, adapts dynamically. It's an intelligent, responsive system. And the source says they started rolling this out back in 2020, beginning on line 1. So it's moved beyond just a test phase.
And the result. This is the crucial part. Did it work?
According to the source, yes. First, the core goal. It demonstrated its effectiveness by lowering ambient temperatures in the metro environment, a direct hit on the heat problem.
Okay, so it made things cooler. What else?
It improved air circulation. And interestingly, the source notes this was particularly useful during the COVID-19 pandemic. Better airflow became a major public health concern then.
Ah, that's a really good point. So it had benefits beyond just temperature. Multi-purpose optimization.
It shows how these systems can tackle interconnected issues, but the numbers are really striking, especially on efficiency.
What did the source say about energy?
It achieved a notable 25.1% reduction in energy consumption for the ventilation system.
Wow, over 25%. In a huge system like the metro, that's massive.
It's genuinely significant. Think about the cost savings for the transit authority. Huge. And think about the environmental benefit. Cutting electricity use by a quarter reduces the system's carbon footprint substantially. It's AI delivering both economic and environmental wins.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
But did the passengers notice? Did it improve their experience?
Apparently, yes. The source reports a 10.7% increase in passenger satisfaction.
Nearly 11%. That's a big jump in satisfaction for something like public transit conditions.
It really is. It strongly suggests that people felt the difference. The cooler air, maybe better air quality, perhaps fewer heat-related delays. It shows that optimizing the system with AI translated directly into a better daily experience for millions of commuters.
So this Barcelona example, it's really significant because it takes urban AI out of the realm of theory.
Absolutely. It's deployed, it's working, it's delivering measurable results on multiple fronts in critical infrastructure, tackling heat, improving air quality, saving energy, making people happier with the service.
It proves the concept. AI applied to a complex, maybe even aging urban system can yield real, tangible benefits. Operational efficiency, environmental gains, better system performance, and improved human well-being.
It's concrete evidence that AI is becoming a practical tool right now to address those stresses we talked about: infrastructure strain, livability issues, indirectly supporting public health by keeping essential transit functional and comfortable during heat events.
And if it works so well for something as complex as metro ventilation, it really makes you wonder about the broader possibilities, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Which leads perfectly into our final section, section 4, looking ahead, broader potential for urban AI adaptation.
Yeah, connecting that Barcelona success to the bigger picture. If AI can optimize that system, what else could it do for cities facing heat stress?
It serves as a really powerful proof of concept. If you can successfully apply AI to optimize a century-old underground network, it strongly suggests you could apply similar principles to other critical systems under heat stress.
Like the other infrastructure we discussed, power grids, water systems, roads. How could AI help there, building on the Barcelona logic?
We'll take the power grid. Similar principle. Use data weather forecasts, past energy use patterns, real-time demand from smart meters to predict exactly where and when the grid will be most strained by AC demand during a heat wave. Then the AI could help the utility operator proactively manage the load. Maybe subtly adjusting voltage, rerouting power flows, or even coordinating with large commercial buildings to briefly cycle down their AC demand to prevent local transformers from overloading and causing blackouts in critical areas. Like Respira optimizes fans, this would optimize power flow.
Smart grid management, basically. And water systems.
Similar idea. Predict demand spikes based on heat and time of day. Optimize pump operations and valve settings to keep water pressure stable across the city, especially in high demand or elevated areas. AI could also potentially analyze flow data to detect faster leaks, which might be worsened by heat stress on pipes, helping conserve precious water. It's about predictive maintenance and optimized distribution.
Okay, so applying that data-driven optimization to utilities, What about public health systems again? How could AI help them cope during a heat wave?
This is where the predictive and targeting power could be huge. Imagine AI combining real-time heat sensor data, weather forecasts, ambulance dispatch records, maybe ER admission trends for heat illness, plus demographic data.
To create dynamic risk maps.
Dynamic, real-time heat vulnerability maps. Not just predicting high temperatures, but predicting where heat-related health emergencies are most likely to occur based on environmental conditions and population characteristics.
That would be incredibly useful for responders.
Transformative. Instead of just general warnings, public health could use these maps to deploy resources precisely. Send mobile health teams or hydration stations directly to predicted hotspots. Proactively reach out to known vulnerable individuals in those specific areas. Optimize cooling center locations and hours based on predicted need and accessibility. It ensures help gets where it's needed most, potentially saving lives and easing the burden on hospitals, directly tackling that stress on public health systems.
And what about making the city more livable overall during these extreme heat periods?
Here, AI could help manage the urban environment itself. Using data from street-level sensors, maybe satellite thermal imagery, it could generate real-time cool route suggestions for walking or cycling apps.
Guiding people to shadier streets or through parks.
Exactly. Or it could intelligently control public cooling features, activating misting systems in busy plazas only when temperatures hit a certain threshold and people are actually present, saving water and energy otherwise. It could optimize park irrigation based on heat stress to keep green spaces healthy and cooling. It's about using data to manage public spaces smartly for comfort and function, addressing the stress on overall livability.
And let's circle back one more time to vulnerable communities. How could AI specifically help protect them, ensuring adaptation is equitable?
This is maybe one of the most vital applications. AI's ability to sift through data to identify patterns is key here. By analyzing anonymized data census info, locations of affordable housing, areas lacking green space, maybe past heat health outcomes, AI can pinpoint which populations in which specific geographic areas are most at risk, identifying those especially for vulnerable communities.
Okay, identify them. Then what?
Then AI can help design and target interventions far more effectively. Maybe it helps tailor emergency alert messages and delivery channels for seniors or those without smartphones. It could help coordinate proactive wellness checks through community groups in high-risk zones. It could ensure information about cooling centers, transportation assistance, or financial aid for cooling costs reaches those specific groups who need it most and might otherwise miss out.
So, using data not just to see the problem, but to actively target the solutions to ensure they reach the people who are most vulnerable.
Precisely. It's about leveraging data for equity, making sure adaptation efforts are truly targeted and effective for everyone, especially those facing the biggest challenges.
It keeps coming back to that phrase, doesn't it? Targeted and effective. AI enables a level of precision that just wasn't feasible before.
Right. Instead of broad, potentially inefficient citywide measures, AI allows for interventions tailored to specific locations, specific times, specific needs, based on real data. That's crucial when resources are always limited and the challenge is growing.
The Barcelona example shows it's possible for one system. The potential you're describing is applying that intelligence across many interconnected systems.
Exactly. Energy, water, health, transport, public space, social support. If AI can be tailored and applied intelligently across these domains, you start building a truly adaptive urban ecosystem, moving beyond isolated fixes towards integrated, intelligent resilience.
It's really fascinating. Seeing this technology move from something abstract into potentially a core part of how cities survive and thrive in a hotter future, a fight that's very much underway right now.
It really marks a potential shift from being purely reactive to heat events towards being proactive, precise, data-informed, and hopefully more equitable in building resilience.
Okay, let's pull this all together. A quick recap of our deep dive. We kicked off highlighting the current reality, that big heat wave in Europe in June 2025, acting as a real-world signpost for the escalating threat of extreme urban heat.
We then looked at the source's alarming projections, a tripling by 2050 of cities facing dangerous heat, with potential peak temperatures like 48 degrees C becoming normalized in some areas, a daunting future scenario.
We explored how this heat puts immense interconnected stress on cities, on the physical infrastructure, the public health systems, overall livability, and disproportionately impacting vulnerable communities.
But then we introduced the potential solution highlighted by the source, urban AI, defined as applying AI technologies to city systems and decision-making, positioned as a vital tool for adaptation.
We discussed how AI could help cities anticipate heat risks with predictive mapping, manage events in real time through system optimization, and mitigate long-term impacts by informing planning and design, all in more targeted and effective ways.
And crucially, we grounded this potential in the concrete success story from Barcelona's metro. The AI-powered respiratory system demonstrably lowered temperatures, improved air quality, cut energy use by over 25%, and boosted passenger satisfaction by nearly 11%. Real results.
And that success story suggests a much wider potential. Applying similar AI approaches across other stressed urban systems, power, water, public health response, public space management, and critically, using AI's targeting ability to better protect vulnerable populations.
Understanding these challenges and the innovative ways technology is being deployed to tackle them is really important, we think, for you, the listener, to grasp how our world is changing and how cities are trying to adapt.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to chew on, building directly on what we've discussed from the source material. If AI, as shown in Barcelona and potentially much more broadly, can so effectively optimize complex city systems for heat adaptation, if it becomes deeply woven into the infrastructure, the operations, the very decision-making of our cities, maybe even identifying and targeting support towards specific groups based on data. What are the ethical considerations we really need to grapple with as AI takes on this increasingly vital embedded role in shaping how our cities function, who they serve, and how resilient and equitable they ultimately become?
That's a really important question. Definitely something that requires careful thought and ongoing discussion as these technologies develop further.